What up y'all, it's Teacher, and today I'm going to be telling y'all the story of Pokemon Legends Paldea Decoded. This is a nod to that video I made where I decoded the story of Pokemon Legends ZA, but I did something in that video where I told you what Legends ZA would be about, where I involved another region, right? And addressing the general idea people would have, which is that there's no shot they would cross over like Ultra Beast and Kalos, because then what happens when Legends Alola comes out? Which is why I ended the video giving you guys a few ideas for how they could do Legends Alola if they steal Ultra Beast for the Kalos game. Hopefully this all makes sense. But, you know, a lot of people, they need to hear a better example of how you can use a game's own lore without touching any other region and make it a good game, make it a good Legends game. So it'd be something like this. A cool idea they could do for Pokemon Legends Paldea is make it happen specifically during Heath's time. And I might have put this in the title of the video, but it would be something like in the hype season you'd see this. Let's see, this would be the year 2027 or 2032 or something. The headline for this game's announcement would say a new title set entirely within Area Zero. So Pokemon Legends Paldea, not set in the entire Paldean region, specifically in that hole in the center of the region. Heath's adventure was placed at a pretty good time. This is generally around the time Legends Arceus takes place, and then Legends ZA would take place during the Paris renovation. So it's interesting that after having made Legends Arceus, that Game Freak then decided to place Heath's adventure 200 years ago. I want to just put out the theory that maybe they were planning ahead, that maybe they set this little seed to revisit it for a Paldean game. And so the first thing I'd want to address is Heath's adventure would be what this game is about. And the title of this game, we had Pokemon Legends ZA, right? And Legends Arceus. The title of this would be something like Pokemon Legends Stellar. Something freaking weird. Or Pokemon Legends Terapagos. So you can see where I'm going with this story now. And so, okay, let's start at the very beginning of this. This game would take place at the start of when Heath has decided he's going down to Area Zero. So you'd start the game quite at the top of Area Zero. And you'd be maybe setting up that camp that you see in their very first photograph of everyone hanging out. They have no idea what troubles they're gonna face down there, injuries, the trauma of a Terapagos figure. They don't know all that. That's when the game would take place. And that's a very similar setting to, or feeling that Legends Arceus gave you with Jubilife Village, but also those little camps that you set up around the region that turn out to be your fast travel spots. This is what the start of the game would be, your very first camp. And you'd be introduced to the general friend group Heath has here, as well as the Pokemon that you can see in the modern day photos. You got like Charmanders and all. We'll touch on those later because those are later photographs. But this would be the very start of the game. And so you're either playing as one of two characters. You're either playing as Heath himself, younger Heath, historian, archaeologist. He's excited to figure out the mystery once and for all. People have tried to go into Area Zero for centuries. He doesn't know this adventure he's about to take is the one where they succeed. That's who you're going to be playing as, option one. Option two is when we start to mess around with the details. You know, whenever a story is told, when time passes, let's say 200 years since the Heath story, details get blurry, characters that did exist during that time aren't passed down properly. And so the second character you could be playing as, that I kind of want to say is a better idea, is a random little kid that's with Heath during this adventure. And whether he snuck in because he looks up to Heath and he's like, they're going to Area Zero, I'm going to sneak in too. So he snuck into the expedition or not. That's who you're playing as. And why this is also nice is because Pokemon has yet to make us play as a cool character like Heath. They make us play some nameless character. So you'd start the adventure in this camp is either a boy or a girl who has snuck into Area Zero and is going to join and witness this expedition with Heath, which is going to be so freaking fun. Honestly, it's much more fun to play as this random kid. And so this is what's going to happen with Heath in this scenario. Heath is going to play a very special role, filling in the shoes of the Pokemon professor. He's going to be the one that as you catch various Pokemon in the area, you report back to him and he gauges your encyclopedia of Pokemon of what unnatural and natural Pokemon exist in this weird place, Area Zero. And that's his role. He's your Pokemon professor for this game, because no one knows what's in Area Zero. So he's gonna play the exact same role as Professor Laventon, but that's Heath in the flesh, the same shady, mysterious character from those drawings in front of your face. You're gonna be journeying beside him. And so this is when we touch on the second thing. How can Legends Paldea, Legend Stellar here, be taking place in Area Zero when Area Zero is freaking boring? We've already explored Area Zero, we've seen everything. It's a spiral passage, which is unusual, that leads to the bottom. But no, it's gonna be different. Area Zero, either one, they're gonna be able to scale it even bigger, the same way they're rescaling Lumios, because remember, it could be like a good 10 years until this game comes out. And if you look at graphics like Tomb Raider and all, there's a very different scale you can really add to games once you reach a certain level of graphics. But two, this game, this Area Zero you're gonna explore is gonna actually be much bigger. There's gonna be many more hidden passages that lead to like a mysterious glowing forest in Area Zero, a weird cave filled with crystals in Area Zero. Maybe they find a weird waterfall with a half underwater cave that they venture through. Maybe they find magma, some weird magma spot. I've just listed 4 areas, and these areas aren't in modern Area Zero, right? Well, it's because it's been 200 years. These areas have been blocked off over time through natural events. But Area Zero was much more vast when Heath was exploring it. And you gotta remember, the ultimate journal he writes, one, we don't see the full journal he writes. You know, we see bits and pieces. The book you can read in Uva and Ranha, that's not his full Area Zero book. There's a lot more in those books that the game just doesn't show us. So that's another reason the game doesn't show us, so they could actually expand it in these games. And then the second thing that would be cool is you're pretty much going to be living out what happens in those books. How Heath says day 1 of their adventure, they make it a bit deep. Day 2, they make it really deep. And then like by day 3, they're already at that bottom grassy cave where the pattern is at. You're going to be living through all this alongside Heath as this little boy or girl in this game. You know, there's various ways to go about this. Pretty much as you venture more and more down to Area Zero, we're gonna get the answers of what Heath really saw there. You're going to see the Paradox Pokemon, and if they keep the same noble Pokemon system, they can make it so there's all sorts of Paradox Pokemon that they meet along the way that are kind of controlling each place in Area Zero. Because remember, these Paradox Pokemon are invasive. They're the same as Ultra Beasts. They're gonna ruin the ecosystem. So it makes sense that if for some reason these random Paradox Pokemon are there, like the Donphan that Heath clearly has photographed, that they're ruling each area. And so they could actually replace the noble Pokemon in that sense. And so what this game would be able to introduce is a bunch of more Paradox Pokemon, like a good 5 minimum, going upwards of like 7, 8. But along your journey, making it to the bottom of Area Zero, you're going to see every single Paradox Pokemon. You're going to see the Screamtails, you're going to see the Iron Bundles, every Pokemon. You're even, this is a weird one to say, but you're even going to see the Walking Wakes and the Iron Boulders, though, you know, those will probably be in the post game of whatever this game is. And the reason you're gonna meet every one of these and you're gonna capture them, help build up the encyclopedia and show it to Heath is because Heath has met every Paradox Pokemon. Heath is the one that in-game has named them all. He named it Screamtail because it has this giant tail that screams at you. He named it Iron Hands because it's got these floating hands. Leading up to the very end of the game where he meets the Iron Serpent and the Winged King. But we'll get there in a second. Pretty much, you're going to meet every single Paradox Pokemon, and you're gonna have a fun remark from Heath each time you show him a new Paradox, where you see him naming it. You know, when the creature appears, it will always be question mark, like how they did the Ultra Beasts. Before, they didn't have names, they're only named afterwards, so they're just question marks for the time being. And yeah, Heath's theme is gonna be a remix, or a demix of Briars. It's gonna carry over that same leitmotif. Because that guy was the Briar before the Briar. Let's fast forward to the very end of the game. This is when stuff is gonna get really, really weird, okay? So what Heath writes in his book is that, you know, they're done conquering Area Zero. They're about to go back up. The team is all sleeping at a camp, but Heath decides to wander off. And this is when some weird stuff happens. But before we get to that, there's some other weird stuff that happens that's much more clouded and hard for us to grasp, which is that, okay, you take this elevator like 2,000 kilometers to Area Zero's underdepths. SHANK are the only ones in recent times that appear to use this elevator, and they get to see these underdepths. But apparently, Heath was in the underdepths, which makes no sense. There's no elevator in Heath's time. Well, actually, it's arguable maybe there is an elevator, but Heath somehow made it to the underdepths entirely naturally. And it's possible not only did Heath make it, but parts of his crew. Now, about this question, here's what would imply whether his crew made it to the underdepths or not. It's this photo on screen right now, and what you can see here is Heath and his crew. This is the end of their journey. They said countless days into their journey is when they find this, and it's this giant clump of Terapagos energy and crystals. And the reason this makes it sound like Heath went to the underdepths with this whole crew is because this is what you see in the underdepths. In game, you see a clump of Terapagos crystals like this, and only in the underdepths. But what's odd here, and you know, we're gonna have to think about this more, is the ones Heath showed in his book are giant. To me, it almost looks more like this is a hole that Heath and his crew found. Like they were descending down Area Zero and found a different path than we did. We found Zero Lab, right? Whether it was there before or SHANK and older scientists put it there, we found a path that descends down there. But it's almost like in this game, as you're playing as Heath's crew and all, that you're gonna find a different path that descends to this giant clump of crystals. And the reason it looks like the underdepths is because it's shooting up from the underdepths. And so while Heath's crew, they decided this is the end of their journey and they went off to the camp nearby, Heath would wander to this spot. And this is where the trigger would happen of Heath actually going to the underdepths. Like in some weird way, when he came back here straying away from the team, that it pulled him temporarily to the bottom. Now, because we've added this character of there being this kid that you're playing as, what's actually gonna happen that wasn't passed down properly in the stories is that Heath isn't the only one that wandered off. This kid also wandered off. So while you were with your crew generally for this entire game, only you and Heath wander off at this climax point. So this would be around where Origin, Dialga, and Poké are happening in the Legends Arceus games, that far in. You and Heath are gonna wander off, and both of you are gonna have this weird trance state where you feel like you're falling, and you wake up in the crystal caverns that are Area Zero's underdepths. And now you two are stuck here exploring it together. You still have all your Pokemon, Heath still has his journals and all he can write, and now you're going through the climax of the game, exploring through the underdepths. And it's gonna be pretty much, and this is why I've worded it like this, it's gonna be the exact same thing as Briar and Kieran. Briar and Kieran, you know, they polarized everyone. You either hated them or you loved them. But if you were really absorbing the fun they were putting off in the games, they were putting out treasure hunt vibes. They were both just excited to explore these weird caverns like a child and be so excited at all the different things. It's like a pirate, you know, looking for treasure and looking at their treasure map. They're just running off. Kieran finds this weird Terapagos crystal and Briar's going through her books like, I guess that's Terapagos, try pulling it. It's such a fun vibe, and that's what I try to replicate right here. And who have I replicated it with? But Briar's ancestor, Heath. Of course, Heath would act the exact same way as Briar, fully enthralled and giving the exact same expression as Briar, while you're playing the Kieran role. And so you two are exploring, the exact same stuff is happening, and you're gonna make it to the very end. You're gonna find the gem, you and Heath are gonna talk. Heath's gonna talk about how this looks like it's at the center of Area Zero. It looks like this entire crystal structure we're seeing, it looks like it's coming from this. And he's speculating what this thing could be. And the same thing's gonna happen that happened in the modern day. The gem is gonna awaken into a little baby Terapagos that's walking around. I wanna really create a counterpart to the modern day events. And so this is what's gonna happen next. You see, regardless of how you put it, Heath saw Stellar Terapagos. Now here's the thing. Stellar Terapagos is far too strong. You can't beat it. In the modern day, the only reason we beat Stellar Terapagos is because we were teaming up with Kieran. That's the visual the game was trying to give us. One-on-one, you weren't gonna beat it. And so if we have this situation where Heath is with this kid, and in some way Terapagos is terastallized, they can't win. Heath isn't really much of a trainer, and this kid is just one. We need two trainers that are strong to beat Stellar Terapagos. But that's besides the point, because the first issue is, who is there to terastallize Terapagos? Well, actually, I imagine Terapagos can terastallize itself, and maybe the game could do something like how Legends Arceus is introducing Mega Evolution into the game, that even though the terrestrial phenomenon isn't discovered until decades after Heath's journey, maybe Heath and this kid, they actually discover it much earlier and find a more primitive way to terastallize. And only later in the modern day does Sarantura make the actual Terra Orb. But either way, this is as far as we're going to get from Terapagos. That baby Terapagos, it's not going to terastallize or anything. So how does Heath meet this crazy ass chaotic Terapagos? This is what's going to happen. The Terapagos is going to do a certain thing that we've seen it do at the Crystal Pool. It's going to see Heath and be its little playful self and just fill the area with terrestrial energy. And what it's going to do is mess up Heath and you and send us to a different time period. Temporarily, but it's going to send you to a different time period. And the time period you're going to arrive at is either the distant future or the ancient past. You're not going to be able to tell which. They're going to look one and the same anyway. A future where they have technology, a past where they had technology. The technology that leads to the slabs and all you see in Area Zero. You're going to be sent to a time period to witness this chaotic stellar Terapagos. To make it simple, I'll refer to it as just the ancient past. So this ancient past civilization built all of their technology and all using terrestrial energy. Kind of like in Atlantis, right? And Orichalcum. It's this super civilized group of people, but they based everything off terrestrial energy. So when you're here witnessing this Terapagos terastallizing, it's sucking all of the energy from this entire civilization that it's gonna terastallize into not just its stellar form, but a form beyond that. A form where, as you have quadrilaterals on baby Terapagos, pentagons on center Terapagos, and then it's still pentagons on the stellar Terapagos, it's gonna turn into a true stellar Terapagos form where it has hexagons. And what you're gonna see visually, it's gonna look like baby Terapagos on terrestrial Terapagos' head, which is on a third and crazy looking Terapagos' head. I talked about this in a previous video, how what you're actually seeing with Stellar Terapagos is a turtle on this globe thing, but it's not actually a globe thing. It's on another turtle, but kind of like only being able to see reality at your level, you can only see it as a globe, but what it really is the head of an even bigger Terapagos. And so what this true stellar form is gonna be is this full 3-turtle structure of stellar form Terapagos, where this Terapagos at the bottom level, which is much bigger than just that globe, it's the whole body, looks like what Heath has in its drawings, is this hexagon, is summoning all kinds of storms and little tsunamis to wipe out the area. Perfectly captured is what Heath describes it. And what you're gonna notice, because I love the idea of Terapagos being turtles all the way down, I love how goofy it is, what you're gonna notice in this design is even this 3-stack turtle at the bottom level underneath this chaotic Terapagos is another globe, a 4th Terapagos, but you're not gonna be able to see it. It's all dimensions, right? You're seeing the 4th dimension of Terapagos right now. They're not gonna show you the 5th, but the implication is it keeps going. There is another one down there. And another reason I'm saying this is because you can see that head in Heath's drawing. You can see that hypothetical 4th Terapagos head down there. This is a drawing. You see the ship getting pushed by the ocean waves and all. This is a drawing of Terapagos sinking Atlantis that you and Heath get to go back in time and witness. / a future equivalent to Atlantis for the other side. As for how big this thing is, it's at least like 25 feet, maybe 30 or 40 feet, huge. So this thing on top of Atlantis sucking it dry, all that terrestrial energy, it's huge, it's fitting. You're gonna be witnessing this chaotic event where the sinking of Atlantis type is happening. And you and Heath, along with the Cyclizar, are gonna go there to help quell the Terapagos. And Heath is gonna play the exact same role as Briar, where he has a Cyclizar but he can't fight. He's just gonna be in awe at what he's witnessing, and Heath is gonna be more far back that to him it just looks like this brilliant disc. Like, you can't even see properly what this crap is. This giant turtle structure that goes all the way top. It's gonna be like looking at the sun and all you see is this circular white light. That's what it's gonna look like to Heath where he's watching it from. But you as the kid are gonna go to the forefront and help quell this Pokemon. Obviously along with whoever's in that time period, right? There's gonna be some kind of strong trainer you're gonna be working with. You're gonna quell the Terapagos, which is gonna have an even more grand theme using the light motive of Area Zero and all. And you're going to save the day, right? You're going to calm down Terapagos and it's going to reduce back down to its little baby form and fall as a little gem. But the civilization, the implication is they get destroyed anyway. And maybe it freaking falls through a crack in the earth or falls into the water to end up deep down back in Area Zero in some way. And so yeah, the implication would be that this is in Paldea. It goes back to fun ideas I've talked about before, like making Atlantis on top of Area Zero's crater. That like it was like filled with water or something back then, and that spiral structure and all. It's meant to be an Atlantis super civilization that was at the top of Paldea, at the very center, but going high into the sky. If I remember correctly, in real life, where Plato and all place Atlantis is like in between where Spain and all would be, and then where the North Americas would be. So in between those two places, it was supposed to be like center ground that Plato said made it easy for people to get from that side of the world to this side of the world. It was a very convenient island. And so that location that he's written is pretty close to Spain anyway. So it can make sense if Atlantis literally was on top of Paldea, or it's next door to Paldea. Either way, Terapagos sending you here makes sense. Terapagos can send you to a different location too, right? It brought Turo from wherever they were in Paldea all the way halfway across the world to Japan, right? But yeah, all this is gonna happen so fast. You're gonna quell the Terapagos and then the nightmare's gonna end and you're gonna wake up with the crew tapping Heath, waking him up at the very bottom of Area Zero. And Heath is gonna have random papers of whatever he was witnessing back then. You know, he's with these ancient people. Who knows what kind of equations he wrote. During our exploration of Area Zero, I Heath strayed from the team and was later found unconscious. When awoke, I could only recall speaking with someone in an unfamiliar place as if in a dream. The Atlantis place. The dream of Stellar Terapagos. And the ancient people who were telling him something that he wrote down in his own handwriting. But it was all such a fast blur, he remembers none of it. The crew is also waking you, the kid, up as well. You're also passed out beside Heath. But you're gonna return to the then modern day with such a hazy mind because all of that happened so fast. And only the stark reminder of that dangerous Pokemon, that chaotic Pokemon that exists. And then Heath gets that drawn and he calls it Terapagos. Now this adds a lot more depth to the little taste of Heath's adventure you got in the main games. You know what they're implying in all those missing pages. And you know the truth about what happened, right? Maybe Heath didn't want to talk about this hypothetical kid that was beside him. But along with Heath knowing the truth about that weird civilization and that chaotic Pokemon, there's another one who does know, which is the kid you're playing as in those games. And so that would be the story of a Pokemon Legends Stellar, Pokemon Legends Terapagos. And this answers all the questions. It answers exactly what Heath was describing in his papers, how he could have met this Terapagos, which is impossible, by the way, at least in my opinion, the way I think about it. There's no way Heath met it 200 years ago. So the only way he could have met it is if he went to Area Zero's Underdepths, he fell, and then he was transported somewhere else to meet it. And so the distant past and the distant future make the most sense to me by making them one and the same. And that's pretty much it, right? Now look back. We've made this entire game take place in that tiny circle in the center of the region, entirely within Area Zero. And I haven't involved any other regions or lore. So it's kind of the exercise I wanted to take you guys along, right? How all Game Freak really needs is like some tasteful writers that can do fun with an idea. Doesn't have to be an Avengers idea like I said earlier, crossing over Ultra Beast into Kalos. That's just for that game because it actually fits well. And who knows, in the next 10 years, if we get one freaking Legends 8 trailer, maybe we'll see if I'm right with that. But it's extremely refreshing, I hope for you guys, to hear a story that is fully just involving Paldea's plot. Now, of course, there's an elephant in the room in this, right? By the way, shank that like button, and hopefully, if y'all are following along, you're well aware of this elephant. When does this game take place? Or should I say where? What Paradox Pokemon does Heath freaking meet with this kid down there? Well, along with his entire crew? Future Paradoxes or past Paradoxes? How can this game happen? How could he just be going down to Area 0 and meeting both Paradoxes? Honestly, it's up to interpretation. I left it vague on purpose because there's multiple answers I have in mind. One, you could have an answer where, as you're at the start of this, right? So it's you and your crew. Very early on in your journey, you know, when you're learning how to catch Pokemon and all, you're at the very top part of Area 0. Very early in the game, when you're starting to trek down, you might see a blur of a creature walk by. And you and your crew, the crew members will be talking about, what the heck, that thing looked like some metallic creature. And then some other people will say like, no, it looked like some savage ancient creature. Then they'll ask you, hey, main character, what did it look like to you? And depending on your answer, that changes the scope of the entire game. Like how in Pokemon Emerald, after you beat the Pokemon League, your mom asks you, what color was that freaking bird that flew across the screen? If you say blue, you find Latios in your game. If you say red, you find Latias in your game. And the same way, it was much later in the game, but in Pokemon Legends Arceus, depending on which clan member you align yourself with, that's what the game splits off into. In this game, very early on, it'll just split in two. So that's one way they could do it. And they'll just never mention the academy name. You know, you don't know if you're from Uva and Naranja because that would give it away. The other way they could do it is by making our entire journey down to Area 0 something lost in true history. Something like you actually meet both Paradox Pokemon along the way. But then after, when this trance ends and you and this kid wake up, right? And you look at all of Heath's notes and the crew's notes, they only ever describe one or the other to show that time has been messed up. So on Heath's journey, he actually did meet both past and future Pokemon. But because of whatever time mess up Terapagos just did, that all your notes only describe one or the other. And this is a better place to put that game splitting moment. If you get what I'm doing with this idea, I'm trying to create a time loop that you don't properly understand. But if you think deep enough, you'll get why this makes sense. The reason I'm trying to do this is because they already created a time loop in the games, right? Since Paldea has this theme of time loops, it can make sense to add one more time loop. What this would also allow to happen is both Paradoxes existing in the same world, right? They do exist in the same world. You know, Iron Valiant exists in Pokemon Scarlet. I don't know why, but it does. There are a culture magazines that describe it. And the game, I thought Scarlet and Violet would answer this. They never did, but they do exist. And so what would happen is, during the main game, you would meet both the Poo-Poo past and future Paradoxes, right? You'd meet both Iron Bundle and Scream Tails and all of those. But after you return from this Terapagos battle and you've made the decision whether you thought that was the past or future, now you can start to meet some of the cooler Paradoxes, like the Unova Future Trio and the Johto Past Trio, but only one or the other, right? Because now you've polarized the world. Now you're in only one or the other. And so this is where they could put all the cool Pokemon at. So yeah, you would meet both Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon in that cave on your journey. But then after the Terapagos incident, when you talk to your crew about it, they only ever mention it being one or the other. And I think that's a freaky ass time paradox to put in the game. Because especially the other paradoxes exist, guys. I don't know why, but they do exist. Because it's something like this. You think the other paradoxes can't exist. Okay, we have to freaking end this video. You think the other paradoxes can't exist because it's either Sada or Turo, right? But Sada and Turo, doesn't seem like they're the reason that Heath sees Paradox Pokemon in the past. So there's a different factor that allows him to see those Pokemon. Sada and Turo is just who pulls it out in the modern day. So Heath really could, especially if Area 0 has some weird... Remember, Terapagos can pull creatures from other time periods. So Terapagos it could be pulling creatures from both time periods and flooding areas that are with them naturally. And that's originally what Heath saw when he went down there. It was a mix of both. Anyhow, shank that like button. I just have too many freaking ideas in my head. I wanted to share another. I've got a legit, guys. I don't want to stop making videos because I feel like maybe Legends EA might put out a trailer any minute now, or they might put that Kintaro mythical Pokemon or something. But legit, if the drought gonna continue, I want to go. So I don't know, y'all. I'm gonna give it like a few more weeks, a week or two more, see if Pokemon is gonna announce anything for this year. If not, maybe I'll bounce until the actual hype season starts. Because let's be real, okay? All that happens when I make these videos is freaking Twitter and I'll get a hold of them, and then these videos, no one knows that I freaking made these videos. You know, it becomes their ideas. But yeah, shank that like button. Let me know your thoughts. What do you like about this? What do you hate about this? Is it a cool idea? Is it worth it to have a Paldea only game after we just expressed that cool Ultra Beast Kalos game? And I mean, let's see what y'all say. I have ideas like this for freaking all the regions. I have like freaking 3 Legends ideas for each game. So honestly, Game Freak, call me up. Or freaking start your hype season already. It's not even freaking Paldea season. I'm losing my mind here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.